What does independence mean when a nation must still fight every day to prove it exists? Well, as Ukraine celebrates its 34th Independence Day, the mood is one of both pride and defiance. This is not simply an anniversary of breaking free from Soviet rule. It is a bold statement to the world that Ukraine remains unbroken in the face of Russia's relentless war. The streets of Kyiv carry flags and music, but also the scars of loss and resilience. Messages of support from global leaders echo across the capital, affirming that Ukraine's struggle is not isolated, but tied to the wider question of freedom, sovereignty, and the right of a people to chart their own destiny. Independence today is not only a memory of the past, but a daily battle for the future. And as the world rallies around Ukraine, the lingering question remains: will this day stand as a milestone on the road to lasting peace, or as another reminder of a nation whose freedom is still under siege? Well, I am Star Smart, and this is the Flash News. Stay with us. You're welcome back. Before we get into the major briefings on the global scene, we'll take a quick look at what happened in Amazonia on the home front. In Mama County this weekend, the war draft, Award 2025 Amazonian War Draft, reached its conclusion for Mamo County, raising more than $16,000. The draft, which is a recurring mobilization effort within Amazonia, reflects not only financial contributions, but also the spirit of collective determination in a conflict now stretching into its 9th year. Each county participates with varying levels of success, but Mamo's achievement this year underscores how local communities and counties continue to sustain the struggle despite displacement, economic hardship, and the ever-present weight of war. The draft is more than a fundraising exercise. It is a symbol of endurance, a declaration that Amazonians scattered at home and abroad still see their future tied to the fate of their nation. Yet the question persists: how long can a war effort lean on the resilience of communities already battered by violence? And what does it mean when hope itself becomes the currency that fuels survival? Well, Award 2025 will be remembered not only for the numbers raised, but for the testimony it provides. And even under siege, Amazonian citizens are willing to invest in their nationhood, however uncertain the horizon may appear. Now, away from the draft of the weekend, today is yet another Monday as Amazonia marks another Ghost Town Monday today, the 25th of August, 2025. It is the streets of Amazonia once again echo with silence. The streets are ghosted, a silence that has become the symbol of defiance to colonial rule. But alongside this weekly ritual came a message from the government of the Federal Republic of Amazonia addressing rumors that had spread widely on social media. Let's take a listen.
All the streets, towns, and cities of Amazonia are ghosted. Coming up, the government of the Federal Republic of Amazonia has not declared any nationwide lockdown as from 9 September through 17 September 2025. Again, the government of the Federal Republic of Amazonia has not declared any nationwide lockdown as from 9 September to 17 September 2025. The government of the Federal Republic of Amazonia hereby informs national and international opinion that contrary to the information widely circulated in a video and in an audio on social media to the effect that there will be a nationwide lockdown as from September 9 through September 17, 2025, this government of the people, by the people, for the people of Ambazonia has not declared any such lockdown. Neither does the supposed lockdown meet our revolutionary and strategic objectives, nor does it find justification within the ambit of the hierarchical structure of the government of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. And consequently, the government of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia enjoins all Amazonian state armed forces and citizens nationwide to disregard such an unwarranted announcement, and equally calls on all major generals, colonels, captains, commanders, and the Ambazonia State Armed Forces ASA nationwide to show proof of unflinching loyalty and fidelity by complying with the President's communique and ensuring maximum protection of the civilian population during this trying moment. It is also worthy of note that the policy of the government of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia concerning education remains unchanged. We are not against education, yet we are at war with a savage regime committed to our total destruction and annihilation, and we cannot therefore assure the security and safety of pupils, students, and teachers. The onus of protection is therefore on the parents, teachers, and learners themselves. Parents, teachers, and educational stakeholders are, however, hereby advised to weigh the security climate and go by the dictum, safety first.
Well, away from Ambazonia, we see on the global stage in the shifting sands of the Middle East, old enemies sometimes find themselves speaking the language of necessity. Syria's President Ahmed al-Shara confirmed on Sunday that his government is engaged in advanced talks with Israel over a security agreement mediated in part by the United States and supported by Gulf actors like the United Arab Emirates. The discussion centered on demilitarization, the Golan Heights region, and prohibiting the deployment of weapons that could threaten Israel. In exchange, Syria would see economic rehabilitation, a prospect long out of reach for Damascus after years of war and international isolation. The United States envoy Thomas Barak's arrival in Jerusalem underscored the urgency of the talks, meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu alongside Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer and Defense Minister Israel Katz. The American delegation also mapped out parallel conversations with Lebanese officials and notably Syrian representatives. Foreign Minister Assad al-Shibani met Dermer in Paris last week, an encounter described by Syrian sources as cautious but pragmatic. The fact that such meetings are even taking place, given the decades of enmity and bloodshed, only signals a shift that few would have imagined even a year ago. But then the question also lingers of how sustainable can such a deal be in a region where ceasefire collapses as quickly as they are signed. Well, we also take a look at this recent happening with Israel as Netanyahu's rhetoric following Israeli airstrike in Yemen against Houthis' target reflected Israel's broader strategic posture, deterrence, true force. And you hear, whoever attacks us, we attack them. Those were his declaration in reinforcing the idea that Israel will not hesitate to project its power beyond its borders if it feels threatened. Let's take a listen to the Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Today, the Air Force again attacked strategic targets in Yemen. It attacked the presidential palace in the heart of the capital, Sana'a, the city's power plant and the fuel tanks that supply it. The Houthi terrorist regime is learning the hard way that it will pay and is paying a very heavy price for its aggression against the state of Israel. I want to congratulate the Chief of Staff, the Air Force Commander and our pilots on a perfect performance. All of our planes have returned to our territory. Whoever plans to attack us, we attack them. I think the entire region is learning the strength and determination of the State of Israel.
Well, the Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, also doubled down on that point from the prime minister, having this to say.
The IDF has now destroyed the Houthi presidential palace in Yemen and attacked fuel depots and power and electricity stations. We continue to impose an air and naval blockade and are striking infrastructure targets that are used to promote Houthi terrorism. For every missile they launch at Israel, the Houthis will pay with compound interest. Today we brought a plague of darkness and a plague on the Houthis, and later there will also be a plague of firstborns.
Well, for Syria, accepting a demilitarized Golan would mark a remarkable concession, one that could shield its southern frontier from renewed conflict, but would also cement Israel's long-standing security position. Now, behind the quiet diplomacy lies a deeper question. Is this an opening to a reconfigured Middle East where enemies deal not out of trust but of survival? Or will it be remembered as another fleeting attempt at peace overshadowed by the next round of violence? Well, we can only be optimistic about these lingering questions. And in Ukraine, we see Ukraine's 34th Independence Day. That was not just another milestone on the calendar. It was a statement of survival.
Today, Ukraine celebrates Independence Day, fighting, defending itself against attacks and air raid alarms. And very importantly, we are strong and not alone. Every day we are pushing this war back to where it came from, to the Russian sky and Russian soil.
Well, the day commemorates the moment Kyiv declared freedom from Soviet rule. But this year, the holiday unfolded against the unrelenting backdrop of war. Russian missiles and drones had just days earlier killed 9 civilians in one of the heaviest bombardments in weeks, underscoring that Moscow remains determined to crush Ukraine's spirit. Yet the international spotlight shone brightly on Kyiv. United States President Donald Trump sent a message of support, praising Ukraine's courage and reaffirming America's belief in the sovereignty. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney went further, landing in Kyiv to announce a sweeping $2 billion military aid package. The assistance includes drones, armored vehicles, and electronic warfare systems, with nearly $700 million earmarked for NATO-prioritized equipment, such as munitions and air defense. Take a listen to Mark Carney giving this declaration.
With our allies and coalition of the willing, and with Ukraine, the modalities of those security guarantees on land, in the air, and the sea, and I would not exclude the presence of troops. In parallel, we're investing today $2 billion in new military assistance for Ukraine. $800 million of this will help strengthen Ukraine's arsenal for the most urgent.
Canada is setting up their support, Carney said so, casting Ottawa as a committed partner in Ukraine's fight for survival. In Raleigh, North Carolina, far from the front lines, Ukrainians and their allies gathered at a Baptist church to celebrate the holiday with music, food, and art, a symbolic reminder that Ukraine's struggle resonates globally. Well, here's an attendee's account of what this event is for her. You should take a listen.
This festival is a way for us to speak to our community, to talk to our neighbors and friends, and talk to them about what's going on in Ukraine right now, the unjust war and Russian aggression, and talk about the fact that Ukraine is winning this war.
While not forgetting about the war that has claimed about 1.5 million lives on both sides.
Ukraine is fighting not just for themselves. Ukraine is fighting for freedom. Freedom that's both Ukrainian and ours and the rest of the civilized world.
Well, the festival served not only as a cultural expression, but as a quiet act of resistance. A community saying that Russia's aggression cannot erase identity or silence a people. But then how long can Ukraine depend on the steady flow of Western support before political fatigue and economic cost erodes it? And if Independence Day is about remembering the past, What future really awaits a nation locked in a grinding war with no clear end? Well, for Ukrainians, every drone donated, every armor vehicles pledge carries significance beyond military utility. It represents acknowledgement, solidarity, and the recognition that their battle is not theirs alone. Independence Day this year became less a commemoration of past freedom than a reaffirmation of the will to fight for the freedom still under siege. And now over to the 9th Tokyo International Conference on Africa Development, TICAD. We see that Nigeria and Japan have moved closer to what could become a transformative partnership in the mining sector.
He says, just as we once did in Asia, we the people of Japan wish to laugh, cry, and break a sweat alongside the people of Africa.
That's the voice of the Prime Minister of Japan at the 9th Tokyo International Conference on Africa Development, TICAD. And we see that the discussions held in Yokohama with delegations led to Nigeria's Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dr. Dele Alake, and officials from the Japan Organization for Metals and Energy Security, JOGMEC, were more than routine diplomatic exchanges. They represented a shared recognition that Nigeria's mineral wealth remains a sleeping giant and Japan, a resource-hungry nation, has the expertise and capital to awaken it. Well, JOGMEC President Michio Daito welcomed Alake's team with cautious optimism. Japan is keenly aware of Nigeria's rich deposits of gold, lithium, and other critical minerals, but Daito made clear that investment depends on more than geological potential. It says we need more information on power generation for industries, tax incentives, labor, duty waiver, free trade zones, and entry and exit conditions, underscoring the complexity of global mining investment. For Japanese firms, reliability and risk management matters as much as the minerals themselves. Alake in turn pointed to reforms under President Bola Tinubu, the removal of fuel subsidies, unification of exchange rates, and new policies aimed at attracting foreign investors. He argued that Nigeria's solid minerals sector is being positioned as the new oil, a backbone of future economic growth beyond petroleum. His message was clear. The old bottlenecks are being dismantled and Nigeria is ready to court serious investors. But then will reforms alone be enough to convince foreign firms wary of Nigeria's history of regulatory uncertainty and insecurity in mining regions? And what does it mean for local communities if foreign players dominate a sector that has so often left host regions underdeveloped? Is the critical questions a lot of Africans and especially Nigerians are asking. Well, for Japan, the stakes is a nation heavily dependent on imported raw materials. Tokyo views Africa as part of its broader strategy to secure supply chains in an era of geopolitical competition. Partnering with Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, allows Japan not only to tap into resources, but also to assert itself in a landscape where China has long outpaced it. For Nigeria, aligning with Japan could signal a new phase, a step towards turning mineral potential into tangible development, provided the benefits reach beyond boardrooms and actually into the lives of its people. Now on to Congo. We see them making a bold new move. In Kinshasa, a familiar currency dilemma looms large, the Congolese francs. Fragile and mistrusted, faces the overwhelming dominance of the US dollar. Nearly 90% of transactions in the Democratic Republic of Congo are conducted in dollars, a staggering figure that reveals both the weakness of the local currency and the scars of decades of economic mismanagement. Into this landscape steps Andre Momeso, the new governor of the central bank, who has vowed to rebuild confidence in the francs and steer the economy away from its suffocating dependence on foreign currency. The challenge is nothing short of monumental. Memories of the hyperinflation of the 1990s still haunt the Congolese. Families who once saw their savings evaporate overnight remain wary of trusting the francs. Today, the currency trades near record lows against the dollar. A reminder of how fragile local monetary credibility remains. Womeso's pledge is not just technical, it is psychological. Aimed at restoring belief in the currency many see as little more than paper. But how do you persuade a market conditioned to survival that faith in the francs is worth the risk? And can a nation so deeply tied to dollarized commodity exports, cobalt, copper, and coltan, truly disentangle itself from the world's reserve currency? The international backdrop complicates matters. Congo is one of the world's richest countries in mineral resources, yet the benefits rarely flow into stable financial systems at home. Instead, revenues are often siphoned off through corruption or external contracts that leave the state weak and dependent. Womeso has signaled that he intends to introduce reforms to stabilize the exchange rate and tighten monetary policy, but doing so in a country with such entrenched structural problems will only test both his technical skill and his political will. For ordinary Congolese, the stakes are deeply personal for them. Markets that price everything from bread to bus fares in dollars create constant volatility for families earning in francs. Salaries lose value in real time. Household budgets collapse under the weight of inflationary shocks. Restoring the francs' dignity, therefore, is not just about macroeconomics. It is about giving citizens a sense of control over their daily lives. If Womeso succeeds, he will do more than stabilize the currency. He will symbolically rewrite part of Congo's economic narrative and shifting it away from dependence and fragility towards a sovereignty and resilience. But if he fails, the Congolese francs may continue its long slide into irrelevance, leaving the dollar to dictate the rhythm of daily survival in one of Africa's most resource-rich yet economically vulnerable nations. And with that, we've come to the end of the Flash News for today. Do not forget to tune in to Still Undaunted at 8 p.m. Amber time for more stories on the home front. For now, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching.